Hey, wanna know a secret? You sure? It's a pretty crazy one, so you might not believe me when I say it, but alright, here goes. I love The Simpsons.
Well, duh.
Yeah, okay, so maybe that's not actually the biggest surprise ever, certainly not if you watched my last video, hint hint, but I still feel it's worth mentioning. I absolutely and emphatically love The Simpsons. How could I possibly not? It's bloody brilliant! Up until about season 20 or so, but still, when it's good, it's flipping great. Now, I'm obviously not alone in my adoration here, as The Simpsons is absolutely massive. Sure, it may have dropped a bit in popularity, but it's still a pretty big franchise, and in its heyday, it was bigger than just about anything. There were all sorts of merchandise and commercial tie-ins, and video games were certainly no exception. We got so many games over the years that it's almost hard to keep track, but unfortunately, most of them were just kinda... well, they were terrible, okay?
No, you're lying! You're lying! What makes you lie?
I'm sorry, but it's the truth. Most Simpsons games are awful. Simpsons Wrestling, Bart's Nightmare, Simpsons Skateboarding, they're all dreadful, and I'd fully understand not trusting any game with that name attached ever again after trying pretty much any of them. As it happens though, there actually is the odd shining gem among the turds here, but even when they make a good game, the Simpsons just can't seem to do things quite right. In fact, they sometimes even end up getting sued.
No!
You motherfucker me!
Hi, I'm Atticlo, and this is The Simpsons Road Rage. Before we go any further, I just have to make a bit of a potential apology / issue a bit of a warning. You see, I decided to go for the GameCube version of this game, which meant I had to play it by hooking up and using my Wii. This is a perfectly acceptable option in and of itself, if not for one teeny, tiny issue. The Wii cranks up the volume to 11. At least! Yeah, I can't really tell you why, but for some unknown and bizarre reason, the Wii apparently sets its default system audio level at least 30% higher than pretty much anything else. Luckily, you can adjust the audio levels in most games, which I've tried to do to the best of my abilities with this one, but as you can't actually adjust the audio levels of the Wii itself, you may still notice the occasional crackling or peaking and the like. In other words, be careful when using a Wii, as it could potentially blow out your speakers. I'm not kidding. Anyway, let's get back to the actual topic at hand, as yes, this game, The Simpsons Road Rage, actually landed Fox, EA, and Radical Entertainment in some pretty hot water after Sega took a look at it and thought it looked suspiciously familiar to one of their games. Which one? Well, maybe if I change the soundtrack a teeny bit, that might give you a clue.
Yeah!
That's right, Sega claimed Road Rage was pretty much just a carbon copy of Crazy Taxi. At face value, it's not exactly difficult to see where they're coming from, as they do indeed look and play very similarly, but I don't know, I still think they got this a bit wrong. To paraphrase Jerry Seinfeld, this isn't like Crazy Taxi, it is Crazy Taxi!
This is gonna cost me.
You got that right, though I can't say exactly how much, as Sega and Fox eventually settled out of court for an undisclosed amount. Still, it probably wasn't exactly cheap, and I'm still not sure Sega was actually in the right here. Oh, Road Rage is Crazy Taxi, no doubt, but is it really so bad for someone else to take your formula and create their own version of it? Isn't it enough to know that you created something that people actually want to copy, and that even those copies will be good enough to make people happy?
Oh, look at me. I'm making people happy. I'm the magical man from Happy Land in a gumdrop house on Lollipop Lane.
In all seriousness though, I'm really not sure how this actually would have played out if it had gone to court. I mean, Road Rage is definitely copying Crazy Taxi, but it's not exactly one-to-one. As a matter of fact, I'd honestly argue Road Rage is the far better version. No, I'm not saying Crazy Taxi is bad or that Road Rage is perfect, but after playing just a little bit of the former after completing the latter, I genuinely think the rip-off did a better job here. The levels are better designed, it has a far wider and more varied selection of characters and vehicles, and the controls are much, much smoother and more intuitive. Hell, even the music might be better. At least in some cases. Sure, the soundtrack of Crazy Taxi is about as iconic and memorable as it gets, but upon revisiting the game myself, I forgot that not all versions of the game actually retain that soundscape. In fact, I was almost shell-shocked when I fired up my copy of the game expecting to hear The Offspring, only to instead get whatever the hell this is. Yeah, no disrespect to whoever this is, but let's face it, that's just not the same, is it? If my choices are this, or the admittedly rather simple, generic, yet perfectly fitting soundtrack to Road Rage, I'll take Road Rage any day. Bottom line, stay away from the PS3 version of Crazy Taxi. Even with The Offspring backing it up though, I'd still say Road Rage takes the W. After all, Crazy Taxi doesn't really have much of an overarching goal apart from just getting high scores, and while that's fine for an arcade, it's not as great when playing at home. In contrast, Road Rage not only has unlockable characters and vehicles, but it also has an ultimate goal and a storyline. Kind of. Basically, it seems Mr. Burns is trying to take over Springfield's public transportation system with the introduction of his brand new nuclear-powered buses. Naturally, not everyone is as thrilled about this as him, least of all poor old Mole Man.
Please kill me.
That poor man. I hope someone does kill him.
Considering how harmful these buses obviously are to everyone's health, Homer decides to do something about it. Become an unlicensed cabbie.
Jim Wallace, Associated Press. Is this a joke?
No, that's really what he does. In fact, his entire family gets in on this grift as they all hit the streets with their various vehicles in an attempt to make as much money as possible.
Toby Hunter, Minneapolis Star. No, really, is this a joke?
Well, I suppose it kind of is, yeah, at least in the sense that it's not meant to be taken all that seriously. It's pretty much just a framing device. Hell, Bart even kind of spells out how this story isn't really all that important.
Just get to the game already!
And get to the game we do, as the only other cutscenes or story elements after the intro are these little warnings, threats and curses Mr. Burns throws your way after each of your completed runs. Other than that, it really is nothing but gameplay until the ending, which only unlock once you earn enough money. That's right, this game is all about earning as much money as possible. Not only does the amount you earn in a given run equate to your high score for that particular attempt, it also adds to your total combined earnings, and after reaching certain thresholds, you'll be able to use that money to unlock more characters, more levels, and eventually, the ending. Exactly how much money are you actually trying to get though? How much do you ultimately need?
$1 million.
Correct, you are indeed trying to get a whole million, as this is apparently enough to make Mr. Burns decommission his buses. For some reason. I suppose the implication is that you buy him out or some such, but they don't really make that clear. All that happens when you get this money is that Mr. Burns gets a bit exasperated, agrees to remove his buses, and kicks you out of his office. There's no mention of any money exchanging hands, so I guess he could also just be fed up with the competition or some such. I don't know. As mentioned though, the why isn't really all that important in the end anyway, as it's ultimately way more about the how, as in how do you actually get all that money? Well, I have already mentioned that this is basically Crazy Taxi in a slightly different form, but if you're not too sure what that actually means, let me sum it up in one word. Chaos.
It'll be motorized mayhem, mayhem, mayhem. Do we need all this mayhem? We do. Alright, fair enough. Suppose you know your business. Get ready for fun, fun, fun!
Yeah, as fun as all this is, there's no denying the chaotic nature of this setup. Given that the original concept uses the word crazy in the title, and that this game is named after a fairly destructive and potentially dangerous phenomenon, this may not be too surprising, but still, it is absolute mayhem, at least most of the time. Essentially, you are, as mentioned, operating as an illegal cabbie as you attempt to get as many people as possible to their destination within a given time limit. As you'll get a bonus depending on how fast you are though, driving safely isn't really much of a priority, it's all about reaching your goal as fast as possible by any means necessary. In other words, this gets pretty dang crazy indeed. Part of this is down to the rather wonky nature of the game though. Oh, it would still be a very hectic experience either way, what with so much being so destructible and Mr. Burns' buses all apparently being driven by homicidal maniacs, but the fairly inconsistent hitboxes and completely bonkers physics certainly don't help. Nor does the fact that the game is also very inconsistent and weird about its own rules. As mentioned, you will get a bonus based on how fast you are, but it seems like there's no real consistency in what is actually considered fast. I had more than a few moments when my passengers actually jumped out of the car just as I reached their destination, indicating that I was being too slow, and yet I still got a fast bonus. Reversely, I've also had times where I'm praised by my fare for being fast, while still getting marked as slow, so yeah, I think this game gets a bit confused at times. I also don't really get why some passengers even bother hailing you when they're only going a few meters. I'm not kidding, there are times when the distance between pickup and drop-off is so short you could hop it, and yet these lazy buggers would rather drop potentially hundreds of dollars than take a ridiculously short walk. Then again, we are talking about the people of Springfield here, so I suppose it actually is kind of believable. Then there's the aforementioned screwy physics and hitboxes. You see, for some reason, this game is just so hit and miss as to whether your car will actually hit or miss. Obviously, it is a rather silly, cartoony game and all, so I'm not necessarily expecting realistic physics or anything, but I'd still say the hitboxes and such here are, well...
Shall we say, less than accurate?
Yeah, I mean, just look at some of this. What exactly am I hitting here? The giant wall of air? Or what about this? Want to explain how this is supposed to make sense? Fair enough, this isn't really a big problem as none of it actually breaks the game or anything, but still, it does make the game feel a bit rushed and unstable. Actually, I don't mind it too much though. Something I do mind, at least a bit, is the unrelentingly repetitive nature of this whole setup. Yeah, I know, saying that a game that literally involves doing one thing over and over again might get a bit repetitive isn't exactly a massive surprise, but even for this sort of thing, it does become a bit too much. Oh, the selection of characters and all the different levels and such do a decent enough job of adding at least a little bit of variety, but nothing can really change the fact that this is still more or less a gigantic grindfest. Okay, so it's not all that bad to begin with, as the first few rewards don't take that long to unlock, but as each new reward costs more and more, you eventually get stuck having to do more and more runs before anything new or all that interesting happens. Sure, you do have the so-called missions to break things up a bit as well, but as they're just a series of quick challenge runs that don't actually add to your total earnings in any way, and there are just 10 of them anyway, they can really only do so much to break up the inevitable monotony. There's even quite a bit of repetition within each individual run. For example, it is quite enjoyable and humorous to hear all these beloved characters deliver a decent selection of unique lines, all in their original voices, even when they don't quite match up.
Get in the car! Both of you!
Do you have my pills?
I can take you there!
But after hearing the same line for the 100 and gajillionth time, it weirdly loses a bit of its appeal somehow.
That's impossible!
In addition to that, you'll most likely also spend every run just going back and forth between only a few different locations. You see, passengers basically always spawn in the same areas, and while the specific characters may change, their destinations rarely, if ever, do. Each spawn location almost always leads to only one destination, meaning you'll ultimately get stuck going around in these relatively short loops every single run. Sure, you technically can take different routes if you really want to, but in order to get in as many fares as possible, which is the whole point of the game after all, these annoyingly small and incredibly repetitive circuits are all but inevitable. To be fair, the game does occasionally try to break things up at least a teeny tiny bit. You see, every so often, you might get the chance to earn an extra bonus by either avoiding traffic or causing as much damage as possible before dropping off your current fare. I suppose this is a decent way of adding a bit of variety, but as it does happen rather sporadically and it only lasts for your current fare, it doesn't really make that much of a difference. Oh, it helps, but it's not exactly a new mode or anything, is it? That's actually something this game is lacking overall, modes and extras. You really do only get the main road rage mode and the 10 missions, that's it. Yeah, there is a multiplayer option as well, which is nice, but in my opinion, it barely even counts as I'm really only here for the single player anyway. No, it's not a deal breaker or anything, as what we get is fine, but it still would have been nice to get at least one more mode, or some occasional bonus levels, or just something. It's not like there's really that many rewards or extras or such either. Sure, there are quite a few characters to unlock as well as more levels, but to me that feels more like just general game progression than bonus unlockables or the like. They're pretty much required for progression, they're not a reward for completing a challenge or some such. As far as I know, the only real bonus or extra in this game is Homer's alternate car, the Homer from the episode Oh Brother Where Art Thou, which is the reward for completing the missions. Other than that though, we basically get...
Nothing at all. Nothing at all. Nothing at all.
Stupid sexy Flanders!
Reaching the ending may not feel all that worthwhile either, as it seems none of this was even real in the first place. You see, after gathering the $1 million and getting thrown out of Mr. Burns' office, it's revealed that this was apparently all just a game being played by Kang and Kodos in their spaceship. Yeah, I know, this is just meant to be a bit of a gag and all, but doesn't it also suggest that the entire game was just a waste of time? Hell, they flat out called their own game bad!
This game has become tiresome.
Worst video game ever.
Even if this wasn't an obvious joke and the creators truly felt that way, I would still say this is actually a pretty good game. Oh, it most certainly has more than a few rather glaring issues, but none of them are close to egregious enough to ruin the experience, even combined. The premise is good, the characters are great, the levels are well designed with loads of recognizable references and iconographies, and overall, it's just fun! No, it's not the most content-rich experience ever, and it is more or less a rip-off of Crazy Taxi, but I honestly and genuinely do think this game utilizes that concept much more effectively and in a far superior manner. Oh, Crazy Taxi is fine for what it is, but it can't really compete with a game that not only improves on its concept, but it does it with far more humor, far more charm, and with some of the most beloved and cherished characters ever created. It really is no contest. Now, if you'll excuse me, I can't really think of a way to end this, so here's Homer chasing a dog with a puffy tail. Thanks for watching.
Here, Puff! Here, Puff!
What the hell is that?
Hey, thanks for sticking around until the end. If you liked the video and want to see more, then please like, comment, subscribe and hit the notification bell, and if you want to be extra awesome, please consider supporting me by becoming a member here on YouTube, signing up to my Patreon, buying me a coffee, or sending me a super thanks or PayPal donation. Any and all amounts really will make a huge difference, but whether you feel I'm worthy of such generous support or not, I still want to thank you so much again for watching, and hopefully I'll see you in the next one. Bye for now.